All right, everyone. Good evening. You can hear my voice now. So tonight we have Skyler Williams of the Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. And we're going to open up the show here in just a second with a little bit of history, kind of explaining the situation as it exists, but how we got here. And then we're going to go into, well, the current situation. I'm going to show you people, the signs of a territory that is currently occupied, buses blocking roads and stuff like that as we talk through all of this. Without waiting any longer, let's get this thing live. All right, maybe there we go. All right, everyone, this is Skyler. Now, one of the things that I like to make it clear, because this kind of happened with me, you're the spokesperson in that other people have asked you to be the spokesperson because the world we live in is one of those worlds where, well, you need a spokesperson. The media wants that face they can talk to, that name they can use, right? So you aren't like some leader of the revolution. You're the spokesperson because the people wanted you to be the spokesperson, right?
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
and the women of our community, we're a matrilineal society. Around we follow, like, I get my name from my mother's side, and so like we take our direction from our women, and that. But at the same time, missing and murdered women is a real thing, and so that's something that Indigenous women have to deal with, night and day. And for me, to be able to take some of the heat off of that is what they've asked, and so this is what I've been doing for the last 10 months.
I love it. I love it. When I first started reading about the matrilineal nature of, your group, the first thing I actually read was literally a group of women appointed you to be spokesperson. I was like, that's awesome. Just the way that works out because, with a lot of activism movements, when they're leaderless kind of movements and they're cooperatives working together, it's really hard to figure out who's going to be the one who's going to talk. And you've seen it. You've done the media rounds. You know how it is. They want that one voice. They don't want to talk to 20 people.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
And so
glad you're there.
so whatever we can do to try and educate and do whatever we can to make sure we're amplifying everybody's voice as best we can is kind of what I've been tasked with.
Yes, yes. And I love that you've just accepted it with like all your energy because you can see in the imagery and the videos that you've accepted this. And of course that's brought a heavy weight. There's a lot of stuff to talk about later, but one of the things that I want to open up with, especially since this is going up on YouTube and everyone's going to kind of get to see this, is a little of the history of what's going on here. For a lot of us, especially like Americans like me who grew up down in the South with an education system that, still like many people today, but, said Indian, loved to talk about the Cowboys and Indians stuff during our education and gave us no real understanding of just how bad it was. Like, my school system growing up didn't teach me about the Trail of Tears or any of this type stuff. So, like, it took a lot of external learning for me to get anywhere on this stuff. So I like to kind of open up with some of the educational things. And one of the things that I found interesting in terms of what I learned early was that the Six Nations and some others, there aren't just six as I read, there were a couple others that weren't kind of part of it, but were part of the Iroquois Confederacy. For something for people, with that kind of an education background that I got as a child, like, that'll hold water. We know that. We read about that, right? The Mohawk, the Seneca, I'm not going to try and pronounce the others because I will horribly mispronounce them. You can pronounce the others if you want. But these are names that we can identify and understand, where they came from, and so you're on a plot of land that is, I asked you beforehand, but you guys call it, the reservation that was given to the tribes, the nations, a while ago. Like, you guys have had this land for a couple hundred years at this point.
1785 was the date of the year of the signing of the Haldeman deed, and so the Haldeman deed was like our payment for siding with the Brits during the Revolution. And
Yeah.
so when George Washington moved through New York State after the Revolution had burnt down and any our means of sustenance in New York State, and so we all started migrating to this plot of land here at Grand River, and it's about 200 miles long, 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. And so for folks that kind of don't know the geography of Canada, it is like Southern Ontario is home to about a quarter of the entire country of Canada lives in Southern Ontario. And
And
so,
also the
yeah,
largest group of First Nations people in all of Canada as well. There's
all
somewhere
of
near
All of North
30,000 of you there,
America,
right?
all of North America is the biggest, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and so yeah, 27,000 live
wow.
at
So
it's
I'm
part of
gonna
what.
show people the map so they can see this. I'm gonna pop this up on the stream real
Yeah,
quick.
absolutely.
So this is Southern Ontario, and you can see kind of in the smaller version of the map, you know, the little square there that shows the zoomed in area. And I believe this is a map you've seen before a couple times. You just got the red
Yeah,
outline, and so the red outline is, of course, the land claim that the tribes were given for their support against. Well, honestly, I mean, it wasn't really even support of the British. Washington and his band of, evildoers were literally destroying your land on purpose to drive you out of it. So, you know, it's funny for me to hear it said as you supported the Queen, right? Because you were really fighting your own fight. It just happened at the same time as I saw it.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
but they gave you this plot of land, and at this point, you see the yellow plot that says current reserve. That's all that's left. Everything else has been taken from them. Now, this is the thing that I wanted to get into just for a better understanding is all of that land that was taken. There are some stories that say pieces of it were sold off, rightfully so. Like small pieces, maybe, like for someone to build a
Yes,
house
that's
on.
true.
But for the most part,
Absolutely.
what I read says this land was taken in the way that a lot of the lands here in America were taken through backroom deals, through enriching a single family that gave up plots of land illegally. But most importantly, you have currently what I would consider two governments. One that the RCMP put in place in 1924 that they had better control of, basically a coup, and then the one that kind of really represents the people on the ground. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, the band council, elected band council, is akin to your the tribal system in the states is the same thing here. And so in 1924, yeah, RCMP came in very heavy-handed, arrested a lot of the chiefs and clan mothers that were conducting office at that time. And so, like the Iroquois Confederacy, that group of chiefs and clan mothers that kind of ran government for us were all, if if not imprisoned, then arrested and released or whatever. And so, and at that time, like in the early 1900s, we weren't allowed to hire a lawyer to defend us, either criminally or civilly, to progress any kind of land claims. That stayed that way until 1960. And so, to not be able to have a lawyer, and then residential school was kind of a big part of Six Nations' story as well. And so by the time we were able to hire a lawyer, like we were more concerned with, that next generation being able to keep them out of residential schools and keep our children safe enough to, my dad will tell stories of, hiding from the church, the church group that was going around snatching kids on their way home from school. Like this was a reality for my family. And so like this is something that it was a lot less when I was young, but my brother, who's 8 years older than me, he like he had friends that went to residential school and had some just amazingly horrific stories that came out of that. And so yeah, so and then 1995, more recently, Six Nations Elected Council, they launched a lawsuit for the loss of lands, land claims dispute process that's here in Canada. And I think that's kind of the land claim stuff is one that's an odd conversation to have, because you call it land claims, but it really has absolutely nothing to do with land. Like land claims are only about money.
Right.
They're only about the dollars and cents of what that land is worth. And if you're talking about 200 miles, 6 miles on either side of the Grand River from the mouth of the source in Southern Ontario, where a quarter of the country lives, you're talking about the most lucrative bit of real estate there is in the country.
Right.
And so there isn't a country in the world that's going to give 27,000 people, you know, $1-2 trillion to you know, like it's
Right.
just, it's not going to happen. And so, like, we're talking about bankrupting a country here. And so, so absolutely, like, this isn't something that, you know, certainly our people, uh, um, uh, when it come to going in that land back lane, it was about, you know, taking back some of what was lost. And certainly, um, when these massive developments that roll in on the doorstep for our communities, like, this is an issue that we're having. Like, we don't want anything more than, you know, what every other big city or small town has had the opportunity to do across North America, which is, you know, like, to be able to grow and thrive and, you know, have those borders increase as, you know, your population increase.
So
And so for us, there's like,
yeah.
having 1,400 homes on the doorstep of our community in a space that was, you know, agricultural lands before, like, this, it's absolutely ridiculous to run through, you know, with bulldozers and excavators to dig up everything that's beautiful about our earth. And the connection that we have to it is something that, you know, we're going to defend fiercely.
So over this time, since, you know, what happened in 24 to 95 to now, you know, through that time, you guys have basically done nothing but lose land. Like, they've taken it in every way you can imagine. And at this point, it's just too much. And now with the 1492 land back lane occupation, which you're cool with that word, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it is,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Like,
absolutely.
so you know, it's an occupation. What's going on, for people that don't understand, is 1492 land back lane is what the Six Nations have named it. It's what your group who's occupying it have named it. It was originally going to, well, it was originally just nice land on the border of your land, which needed to remain nice land on the border of your land. But some developers supposedly bought it completely legally, you know, according to them and their lawyers. And we're going to build, and I'm reading some notes here, they were going to build Mackenzie Meadows, which was going to be this big development of houses. And of course, you and your people stepped right up, took the space, occupied it with an encampment, and did, well, I'm going to show them a picture of, well, there's multiple buses and things like that, but I'm going to show them my favorite picture of the bus. I'm gonna show them this here. And you did this, and I don't know if you can see it on the stream there, but the bus with the flag on top, just, you know, right down the side with the black banner across the street. I believe this is the one that's right outside the church there in the background. So this is, you know, this is one of the streets. One of the others has, you know, a trench dug out of it and a tire fire was put in it. You know, they took these streets, and you also, as I understand it, blocked a railway. So you really, like, just all forms of travel were like, nope, we are occupying this land. And you took that land. And what I want to, you know, have a completely clear understanding about here is that was your land to begin with. You lost it through one of the hundreds of ways they steal land from reservations over the last 200 years. And now you've taken your own land back.
That's right. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, so I just want to say, though, and to caveat the bus and the hole on the road there, like, all of those actions were taken in response to massive violent OPP incursions on the camp. And so on August 5th, like, we went in on July 19th. We went in there on a Sunday afternoon because we, like, it was about 5 o'clock. We sat down, we made a fire, and everything that we've done has been very deliberate in a way that, because we wanted to maintain it as a peaceful occupation of our lands.
Correct. Yeah.
And so we went in on a Sunday evening so that the OPP would have Ontario Provincial Police, akin to, you know, your state troopers, went in. We set up that fire. And, like, it was Sunday night, and the cops had, you know, lots of warning to give to the developer. Developer didn't show up on Monday because the OPP was able to call them. And you know what? We sat down, we had dinner that night. You know, the OPP showed up 1 hour after we got there. One of the very first questions they asked was, how long do you expect to be here? And I said, well, our people have been here for the last 10,000 years. You know what? I think we're going to be here for the next 10,000 more.
It's a really dumb
And we had a good laugh about that. And then they left. And then on August 5th, between August 5th and July 19th, the developer sought an injunction to be able to remove us from the lands. And injunction is just a civil court tool that the developers can kind of use as a strong arm to force police action against us. And so they got that on August 5th. OPP rolled in. They had a sheriff come out with them to read their injunction. And and then the OPP blocked all the roads. So any kind of means that we could have utilized to get people to the site as go to back up.
Right.
They blocked any of that off, and then rolled in with these massive van, like the 15 passenger vans, just this massive line of about 30 of these 15 passenger vans rolled up, and all of these OPP officers, very tactically outfitted OPP officers, several of them had these very large guns that look like 12 gauge shotgun. We learned after that they were an Arwin rifle, a rubber bullet gun. And so, I mean, they don't tell you that before they start shooting them at you.
Right.
They just look like 12 gauge. They sound like a 12 gauge. It's a very loud bang. And so to hear those bullets whizzing by your ears was quite the situation that day. Myself, as well as 8 other people besides me, were arrested on August 5th. And when we got out of lockup, this woman come running up to me and she says, "Do you know what's going on the ground down there right now?" And she had this phone, and like I couldn't see past her hand to see who this person was that was sticking, but it was just somebody's live stream. Like there was a fire on the highway, there was a fire on the roads, there was a fire on the one side street, railway, there was a train that was coming through, it got blocked and turned around. And then, we got back onto the land, I got back down to where all of the commotion was happening, and the kind of core group of us kind of got together and said, like, well, what are we going to do now? And I said, well, we've been there for the last few weeks. I said, I'm going back to my tent. and we all had a laugh, and there's a lot of cops over there. I said, well, there's a lot of us over here. And that day there was, hundreds of Six Nations people taken to the streets that day. And then as the news kind of spread, like our family and friends that, kind of got the word out. And like there was people from reserves from all over Southern Ontario. There was, people from, Hamilton and Toronto, and just this huge swell of people showed up to make sure that we were able to drive right back in the front door of Landback Lane, just like we did the very first day.
That's amazing.
And so 4 hours was the only time in the last 310 days that we've not had our people on the land at Landback Lane.
That's amazing. That's just awesome to hear, especially the support that pours out after they come in and arrest everyone. Like the one thing that shows the strength of a group of people is when the cops come in with that many busloads of tactical cops, does everyone run for the hills, or does everyone send for backup and backup shows up? That's sending a strong message to the state. That's a really strong message of your fear tactics didn't work. But it does get expensive, because every one of those arrests has to be fought. Every one of those people is going to court. There are tons of charges. There's then the injunctions that have to be fought. And so while maybe everyone or most people got out and got back to the land, that wasn't the end of that one day. That one day lingers on because of all the court cases and all the charges and everything else. The criminalization of these people.
We had started talking about the injunction stuff at that time, and there wasn't a whole lot of charges that were coming out except for the 9 people that were arrested on August 5th. And so when we got out of that, we immediately started to work on the injunction and started trying to figure out what it would take. And so we had conversations with lawyers, and I remember talking to this one lawyer for 45 minutes, and then he was really into it, thought it would be a great thing to do. And then I said, well, so like, bottom line here, how much is this going to cost us? And he said, well, to take this as far as you need to go, you're looking at maybe $1.5 million. And I said, I kind of laughed, and he said, well, I understand you guys got a fundraiser going. Like, how's that going? I said, and at the time, I think it was like $21,000. And
Right.
he's like, well, I guess you better get baking some cookies. I said, oh,
I mean, the
thank
legal
you very
system
much
is
for
really
your,
rigged for the rich.
it really is. And so, but I'm really lucky. You know what? I can't say how enough about how lucky I am and my friends. And, we said, well, you know what? There's half a dozen of us educated people. We can figure out how to, the rules of civil law, and we can fight this ourselves. And so we'll have some lawyers that we can contact and stuff, but like all of our writings, all of our everything, like it all came from us. And then so on October 22nd, we the judge in that injunction case decided to bar me from any participation in my own defense and strike any of that history. It isn't. But because I'm standing in contempt of whatever order that he had given.
The injunction.
Yeah. Because I wasn't leaving the land, therefore I don't deserve to speak in my own defense. And so that happened. And when we came out of court that day, and now all of the history that we had tried to put in, all of the facts of why we were there were all stricken from the record. And so the judge granted a permanent injunction on the land there, kind of forever deciding that land claim over that parcel forever. And it's like the lowest of low courts that we have here in Ontario for this, this judge to rule on something as big as that.
This does not belong in his court. This belongs in the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, this is Supreme Court of Canada stuff. Like, you have no business whatsoever making a call like that. And so when we got out of court that day, there was a press conference. We did some press, and I had, done a little bit of talking, and there's one road that kind of borders the camp, and that said, I'm going to drive down this road. Like, whatever, like, I hadn't driven down it in a month. And so and by then all of our barricades had come down, and it was just, it was, an open country road. And so I went around, and Tawny was sitting, a woman from the camp was sitting at the back door, and she called me and says, where are you? Need to get to, like, in the back door is what we call just this back trail that we used to get into the camp. Mm-hmm. And she said, you need to get here right now. The OPP are here. They got their guns out. And I'm like, I'm here. Like, what? And I was right around the corner, like 2 seconds away. And so as I pull up and come over a hill, there's just this, 10 cruisers in the middle of the road. These big Arwen rifles pointed at people. And, we just immediately went to like lining up and, pushing them off the land again. And they shot the one guy, shot him in the back. Like the bruise looked like a pineapple on his back. Yeah. It was like yellow and green, and this
non-lethal is bullshit. That stuff can kill.
Oh. And one guy come running up after to me and was like, Sky, I got these things stuck in my back, and they were the taser darts. They'd shot him as he was running away. And yeah, so I pulled those out of his back, and and there was a fire, Benestado, which was part of the 2006 big fight that we had in 2006. And there was a group of people sitting there that were like ducking from rubber bullets flying over their heads. Like, it was such a ridiculous afternoon that, but then after, people had heard that the cops were coming and shooting again, that's when the road got dug up, the highway got dug up, the street that went into into the town of Caledonia got dug up, the railroad tracks, they all got dug up. And so there was just these massive trenches, some of them, 10, 12 feet deep right across the roads and streets, and some of the heavy equipment that was brought there to, push this development ahead.
So, at that
those
point,
barricades stayed up for 4 months until just last month when, we had, had lots of conversations and lots of talks with community, lots of talks with our people at the camp, and kind of came to a spot where we're like, all right, like we're ready to open these barricades up, but there better not be any OPP violence coming back in our direction.
And that was for like the locals, because there are other people who live on the other side of where there's those barricades. Those barricades had to be built where they had to be built for strategic reasons, but that did put some people behind them who aren't part of the Six Nations. Very few, but there were still people back there, and you guys opened them up, for the community.
Yeah, there was, I think, 10 people, I guess, 10, 12 people that live kind of right in there that had
in that weird spot.
And things like that. And most of them had absolutely no want whatsoever to have this 1,400 houses be built right directly across the road or in their backyards for a couple of them. And so like they were very, like, these are people that still come out and bring food out to the guys and stuff, and like, and so like that's one of the amazing gifts that we've had here in the last in this last year almost now, is to have these people that are just super supportive, want to bake lasagna up and bring that out, or like it's just an amazing gift that we've had, the support that we've had.
I was trying to find statements from Fox and the other people who are behind the developments, in this scenario, the bad guys, for everyone listening. And it was tough to find, because one, they haven't said much publicly other than that's our land legally. Like they've kind of kept their statements. But one of the things that blew my mind was the president of Fox saying that the thing that upset him most was that he had put a down payment on one of these new houses for his child who was just about to graduate university, and insurance wasn't going to pay him back for that. And I'm like, there is so much wrong going on here right now, and that's what you're like, you petty bastard. I just, that's where they are in their heads. Like that's like you said, this is about the money.
So one of the names that you can look up coming out of this is Ken Hewitt. He was
that was him who said that, by the way.
Oh, that's he's the mayor. He's the mayor of Calgary.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so he had put a down payment for his kid on it. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. He bought a house in this area, and he's the mayor, like in like the Foxgate developments, they're a conglomerate of Lozani homes and Ballantree homes, and like it is so ridiculous to try and pull, like, Ken Hewitt's the one that he my wife and was arrested at the grocery store. She's a writer and a performer. She came down to Landback Lane to perform some of her poetry, and when that happened, she got a warrant for arrest for performing that poem. She had like no mechanical, no organizational involvement in the camp except for that day that she came down and performed for. And like, then that was the thing, is last kind of late summer, early fall, we had lots and lots of concerts and lacrosse games, and so like we were doing like all the kind of COVID friendly concerts, like, and because it's such a big open field, like people could just pull up in their cars and watch some of we've got a ton of, just a wealth of musicians here at Six Nations that are like very big bluesmen, and Robbie Robertson from the band comes from here, like all of these people that like want to come out and show support. Like, this is how they did it. And so a bunch of those performers were arrested, and it was just and so she was among them. And Ken Hewitt came out with a statement saying that he would like to congratulate the OPP for finally targeting my family, and would encourage them to continue to reach out to jail the rest of my family. And so this is like, I have a disabled brother. I have my parents are 76 and 74. Like, my kids are teenagers who go to school in Caledonia. To go to high school, they go to school in Caledonia. And so I don't know who you're looking to target here, but like, and so my kids were very, like, and the odd thing about Caledonia High School was that the OPP Ontario Provincial Police staging area for the land back stuff was directly across the road from the high school.
So your kids had to walk by that to go to school.
Absolutely. And so when my kids come out of their front door at a school, there was just this, 200 OPP cars, armored personnel carriers. Like these are people that just shot at their dad.
Yeah.
These are people that just arrested their mom. The mayor of the county that you go to school in is encouraging them to target them. And so like this was what they went to school in every day. And like I don't understand how this is 2021.
Yeah. It makes no sense. But we all know exactly how. Every Indigenous people, First Nations people of this continent has been treated. It's not like the last coming up on 600 years has been any different than this, right? It's just it's been steady. So it's kind of beat into you at this point that. What I find interesting is, yes, there was the 06 thing, which you can read about online. Anyone who wants to look up what happened there in 2006, there are some pretty good stories about this stuff. There's pictures, there's everything. Although there weren't.
So this particular reclamation is directly across the road from that one.
Yeah, and so what I want to know is, this has been going on for a very long time, right? And
for me in particular, like the 06 stuff, I spent a year in the bush there and 7 months in jail for that.
But what I want to know is, this is the first that like it's finally. Sure, we have a mutual friend who's brought like us directly in contact, but I was able to find some U.S. news that's covered this. Now, of course, it's like some rare little personal blog from someone in the U.S. who calls themselves a journalist, and that's fine because that's how journalism should work. But But of course, no MSNBC or anything else is covering it. But this is the first time I've heard it start to make enough motion that even some of us who try and pay attention hear about it, right? Like in 06, no one I know had heard about this when the first stuff started dusting up. So what's different this time than any of these other times that is keeping you going so strong and holding on to the land? Like, what is there a specific group of people? Is there what is it that's keeping you going at this point? Because for people who haven't tried to occupy space, I've occupied a few spaces, and it is challenging. It is an everyday, all day work to do. So like, you guys are years into this basic fight. For that same area. What's keeping you going?
So like this one here is we're over 10 months now. July 19th is when we went in, and so the all of it, that like I said, like I'm really lucky in my friends, and so like the ability to do media stuff, to do the political outreach, to be able to do the legal stuff, both criminally and civilly, to be able to manage they started a GoFundMe campaign that seemed like we were up to. We set a goal of $500,000 to be able to fight the civil case as well as defend everybody that's been charged criminally. And so like, and I think we're about 35,000 away from that now.
You're getting close to that, so you're gonna have to bump the goal up again.
Because
we know exactly what that lawyer said is not wrong. If this does make it to the high enough courts that can actually, have these types of discussions and at least have people educated enough to really make the correct decisions here. Well, in terms of the law, the local guy didn't even make any kind of a correct decision, let alone by the law. Just a permanent injunction was a bullshit move on his part. But like, it's going to cost a hell of a lot more money. So I shared out the GoFundMe on Twitter earlier, but I will definitely dump it into the chat here for anyone who can. There it is for all the chatters. That's the 1492 Legal Defense Fund. You guys are getting closer, basically. Every minute it's at 467,000. So yeah, about 33 away from the goal. So you're gonna have to bump that up a little. Gonna have to go for the mill.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that was the thing, is because like the bulk of the heavy lifting, like we were able to do that, and like this was 2 months of just cramming every bit of
A lot of books,
like,
a lot of videos.
oh my God, yes, and like, and at the end of it, to talk to lawyers about it, and and most all of them would just were like, like, this is way above, what I know anything to do. So I mean, like, it looks good, everything, like your filings are great, everything's good that way. And like, because I was the only one that was named in that injunction, so all of the damages and all of the um costs are going to be directed at me. And so, like, right now they're suing me as part of that injunction for $20 million.
So that's
That's court.
Foxgate who are claiming damages of $20 million so far.
That's
The
right.
developers.
That's right.
Of the first plot of land. Now, something that, needs to be made very clear, you currently have a plot of land occupied, which is where the Mackenzie Meadows was supposed to be built by Foxgate. Literally across the street is another plot of land where a different group is trying to do the same thing, and there are plans to deal with that one as well. But that so far hasn't started yet.
No, for whatever reason, they've kind of mothballed their plans on that one. And
I
so
heard that they weren't taking pre-sales yet because they might think it maybe won't happen.
that's right. That's exactly what happened. And so the BD Estates has decided to withhold any of the pre-sales. And so they were waiting on starting the pre-sales to get approval from the bank to be able to do all of the um, start getting the funding going to build another 800 houses across from there.
I would like to state something for just blatantly for the record. For anyone who looks at that GoFundMe and sees, that $467,000 has appeared and thinks that's a lot of money, on a personal level, for you, wherever you might live in the world, it probably is. That's probably a house. Yes, absolutely. However, for something like this, where they're fighting multi-millionaire land developers on land worth trillions across the most populated area of Canada, that amount of money disappears unbelievably quickly. That is not a lot of money. In fact, it's not even near enough money to cover what they're going to need to do here. And so I just want anyone looking at that number and thinking, well, they have enough, I don't need to donate, to really think long and hard about the fact that that number is probably a fourth of what it will take to get this to the end of a Supreme Court case if they make it all the way up there, which they damn well should. I mean, whether they will or not is, of course, we both know. I mean, you, Skyler, very much up for debate. But just remember, people, that amount of money disappears quickly when you're talking the law. There are, I don't know. I mean, as of like last time I looked, which was like 5 or 6 months ago, there are at least 30 people who were arrested who have charges. But now, is that closer to 100? Where is that right now?
No, we're at about 50.
50?
We got about 50 people.
Every one of those cases costs money.
Absolutely. Like, so on average, you're looking between, like, for the very, very, lower end of the scale, you're talking about $5 per person. And so, like, there'll be 30 people that are in that neck of the woods. And then there's kind of a second tier, which is, has a little bit more complicated stuff with their court stuff. And then so you're looking at about 10,000. And then there's people like myself, and there's 10 of us that are in a little bit deeper water, and with our criminal stuff that are, like, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to be in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000 per person. And so, like,
yeah.
So
half of that money can be gone already.
So yeah, half of it is already gone.
Yeah.
With our ongoing court stuff, and so the other bit of it, whatever's left, is going to go toward fighting the civil case. And like, so that big fight is going to be something that we're going to be pushing hard here in the next. We're at the Ontario Court of Appeal in October, and so hopefully we can get some movement going there as well.
I have to say this because we are on the internet, and the internet loves cats, and we can all hear the cat. So hi, Kitty. Everyone loves cats. But yeah, everyone. So you got to bring a little brevity to that, little lightness to this. Sometimes we just have to laugh during
Oh,
these
come on,
moments. Like,
absolutely.
if you don't,
As
it's I mean, the first way you lose people from an occupation is to make it so sad and down and so uncelebratory, just so like horrible and downtrodden that you beat into them how bad of an environment this is. Instead, you, it sounds like, are doing everything right by having nighttime dinners with groups of people. You set campfires. That type of stuff is so important for these types of movements, people, that like some people just don't understand how important that is. The community piece of it and keeping everyone's spirits up. So if you see me and Skyler laughing at all, even though this is such a heavy topic, you have to understand that part of it. Like, if you've never been in this type of a situation, it is vitally important to do whatever you can to keep your spirits up. Because, like you said just a few minutes ago, you are literally facing a $20 million fine. And I think we can all agree you don't have $20 million. So that's a life changing
no, I
event.
definitely do not have that. So yeah, no, I mean, and it is just whatever we can possibly do to try and push forward. And like that's the thing too, is like we've been saying, like we're not in the um seeing anybody kicked out of homes that lives on the Grand River now. Like this is about being able to provide for our children and grandchildren the exact same thing that everybody else gets. That ability
Yep.
to be able to grow and thrive. And like it really is ridiculous. I don't like it, to see our borders constantly encroached on, constantly pushed in, and like for 27,000 people with a booming population, like we need that ability to be able to grow. And I mean, I like I kind of mentioned briefly at the top of the hour here that we were like missing and murdered Indigenous women. Like the fact that we don't have a place to grow as a community forces our people out of our lands and into big cities across the country. Like we're all country boys and country girls. Like this is
Right.
and it's not like that type of lifestyle is not something that most of us have grown up with. And so like to push people out of their communities and into these big cities, that like that's where you see the alcoholism, the drug addiction, that all of the things that have created this atmosphere around like this missing and murdered Indigenous women issue. Like this is why. And so
Yeah.
if we don't create spaces where we can grow as communities, as nations, then we're not going to be able to bring those sisters home.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to have a space to be able to let them be able to build those homes, to have those families, that to do like now, like we don't live like our Western brothers and sisters do. Like I don't care what reserve you go to, like there isn't everything covered in concrete and asphalt for the name of progress. Like this isn't
Right.
what progress looks like for us. For us to be able to have space for the deer, the raccoons, the foxes, the coyotes, the wildlife
Actually
that
live in harmony with the
populate
area
our
you live in.
forests. Relatively, anyways,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, I don't care what reserve you go to across Turtle Island. Like that's how it is. Like that's like it's really weird for Indigenous people to go into other Indigenous communities, because as soon as you get there, exactly when you got there. And like
Yeah.
you've seen the changes. And so it's always this kind of odd thing that we all kind of laugh about, but we know that like this is what home looks like.
And that's kind of a beautiful sentiment, and you should be, it's not unreasonable to ask to be able to hold on to that. And it looks like the
Absolutely.
government of Canada doesn't, I mean, honestly, doesn't give a shit at all. Like they just don't care.
Government of Canada or America or
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's many places around the world that have any better way of looking at this. Very few, at least. I mean, it's not like the Amazon tribes are getting any better treatment under Bolsonaro or anyone else, really, right?
this
Like
is it.
that. Like
Yep.
it's just it's everywhere. But right now, the fight for you is right at home.
Absolutely. And it is literally in my back door. Like as I drive, I'm 5 minutes from the camp from where I live on the reserve, and it's yeah, it is like Caledonia is kind of bigger town that borders our reserve, and so everybody, like my parents, my grandparents, like this is where we've gone to do our shopping. This is where you go to the grocery store. This is where you go to whatever, and so
Yep.
they have all of that stuff there, and like so on.
And you should be able to live in harmony with them if they weren't encroaching on your land.
Absolutely, and and this is the thing is like for that town, like I've got a ton of friends that live there. I've got that, and it's still that way today. But and they understand. But it's these massive corporations with all of the millions and billions of dollars behind them that are willing to seemingly pit our communities against each other.
Yeah, so this we talked about a little beforehand, right? This idea that these companies come in, my experience was talking to and dealing with the indigenous people here, like the Navajo and the Hopi, who dealt with the same similar setup as you, where a big company got the government to instill basically a fake council, at first at least. Now it seems like your councils are talking to each other a little, but back then down here,
a little bit.
Yeah, back then down here, they did that in a way where that council's family members, which were all members of the nation, but they made a deal with the devil. They all of a sudden owned mansions, and then all this land the council decided belonged to the power company. You're in a similar situation in that the government there set up a government for you, like gave you one, and the RCMP did with a coup, and going back even before that, because that's 1924, right? Most of the land of this tract that was given by the treaty way back 200 years ago was lost during the mid 1800s when all kinds of backroom shady deals with squatters, and then the country coming in and siding with the squatters kept taking land until they were able to build a bunch of big cities like Caledonia and all the others that are around there, right?
That's right. And I mean, after the War of 1812, there was a huge push just prior to the War of 1812 that seemed, the Brits at the time wanted as many English folks in Canada and in Ontario as they possibly could, because Fort Detroit, Fort Niagara, and Fort York were kind of the big spots around here.
Yep.
And so there was a big push to get Six Nations people, which were had a were the Mohawks were rather famous in the
they had a reputation.
So they did, and I think we might still do a little bit. So there was a big push to be able to get us to Six Nations, because we were going to be a day's ride from Fort Detroit or Fort Niagara to be able to defend those borders. And so regardless of kind of what I think about that decision in hindsight, I mean I wasn't there,
right.
to see the troops coming into New York State to burn down our longhouses and destroy our orchards and the like. And so it was quite the thing to see all of our nations get divided in the way that they were. And I think the Brits and now the federal government and the RCMP and the OPP have looked for every crack possible in our communities to be able to drive wedges
divide and conquer,
to divide us as people. That's right. And so yeah, they've looked for every crack possible and drive that wedge as deep as they can to make sure that we're too busy fighting with each other. And I think in these last 300 plus days, it has been about trying to it's been about unity. It's been about, I don't care which family, I don't care which faction, whether you're a band council or Confederacy council, or, I don't care what family or faction you come from. Like every one of those groups, every one of those families, they all know this is our land. We all know we got screwed out of this. And so when we talk about any of this stuff, this is for everybody. Like the band council, the Confederacy council, the knitting club and the sewing club and the and the rest of it. And because that's the thing is, if one of those groups say absolutely no to a development going on, you know what? No is no. And so we're not. It's got to be for everybody.
Absolutely. So in chat, well, some of it disappeared because someone decided to try and send like 10 paragraphs of text, and my chat is set up so I can actually try and read it. And when that happens, of course, it scrolls by too fast, so it deleted all of their messages. But I did see the question they had asked beforehand, and it was one that I have on my list of notes here too, or similar. Yes, it was Kent. Of course, because I will tell the audience that every time Kent writes something to me, I accuse him of like trying to waste my day, or not because the content itself, but because like in situations where I would respond with like 3 words, he sends me like 6 paragraphs, and they're all intelligent. They're all exactly what needed to be said. It's just like, I don't think he's figured out Twitter yet. You write it short. But his question was about, us as outsiders, and I'll say this, just as, your standard kind of cis-white American from Texas, right? Like, how do we show support beyond doing things like, of course, having a show like this? There's obviously the GoFundMe, which is, currently most needed. Please, for the love of God, everyone that can help. But what else can we do to signal solidarity that people would notice, that would help, that would make sense?
You know what, like, and I do get this question often, and it's one that I often struggle with, because like for each person, their capacities are different. Not everybody has the capacity to run a program like you guys do. And so for a lot of people, being able to put $20 in the GoFundMe campaign, like, that's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. That is so appreciative. Certainly in the middle of this pandemic stuff, and a lot of people aren't working. Absolutely, right on. I cannot say enough about how much, because like that $467,000 was raised by people donating $20.
Yep.
Like, there's no big spender, $20,000, $100,000, $200,000 people that donated. Those were all, like, I think, other than maybe 10 of them, there might be 10 people that donated over $1,000. But other than that $467,000 was all people donating $20, $50, $100. Yep. Like, amazing.
I think the largest one I found when I was looking through was someone did donate, just for the hell of it, which I thought was funny, $1,492. And I was like, right on. But yeah, for the most part, it's like these things go. $20-$30 is like really the max you see people donating, and it's a miracle. It's great. But
that's right.
Beyond money, like, what else can we do? Because like, we need to do that, and I'm going to share that thing far and wide. But like, what else can we do? People in chat are telling us to do things that we shouldn't.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like, and that's the other thing, is like, for some people, like, that solidarity is just doing that, is educating, having that conversation at your dinner table with your friends, your family, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, whatever. But then for other people, you know what, we've got one ally there that she came down on the very first day. It was the evening of the very first day, and she stayed there for the last 300 and whatever days we're at now.
Wow.
And it stayed doing all of the work, and so, I'm not saying that everybody should, go and move in. It's just, for some people, it's coming down and spending the weekend, the week, the month,
go like, meet people in person. See the struggle is real. Be there on the ground. Yeah,
that's right.
So let's say this. If someone shows up, sometimes, especially, like, we don't need 10,000 people to show up unless like there's an event happening, right? But if someone shows up to be less of a burden, what might they bring with them? Because like at the Occupies, we would always ask, if you happen to be a person of means, please show up with a tent. We only have a few spare, things like that. Like, if someone shows up and does plan on spending a week, like, should there be things they should expect to bring to make it easier on you instead of being a burden on the camp?
Absolutely. Like, stop at the grocery store,
yeah.
Grab, bread, butter, milk, eggs, like, it's as we start building, like, there's a dozen tiny homes on site now. There's nice. A couple of smaller kind of communal spaces that and I mean, granted, my house is 8 by 10, and it's small, and it's got a little wood stove in it, but it
works.
What? These are the castles of the resistance, man. Like, right? And so like whatever it is that we can do to keep pushing forward to make sure that our people are going to stay on the land, that my kids, my grandkids are going to be able to go there and utilize these lands whatever which way they want. And so if that's gardening, right now we've got gardens going in. Because of course this development had started by the time we got there, like all of the topsoil and anything that was, you know, rich about the soil there has been stripped bare. All it is just some barren clay, and so we're doing what we can to, you know, make some raised garden beds, and then starting to do the rehabbing on the soil throughout the whole camp. So it's going to take some time, but I mean it's something that all of us are willing and are engaged in and are hoping to see happen over the next, you know, couple of years here anyways.
So before we get to just straight me begging chat for more questions, I wanted to say, you know, you have the land now. Currently, it is occupied, and they currently aren't just coming right in with armored vehicles and doing, you know, like they did to, say, the various occupies here in America or anything like that. So right now, it's somewhat stable, but you know every day that could be the day, right? So you're on guard, but if there's a goal here, is it to keep that land, period? Like that land is now back to being your land? Or is it that you move back behind the border you were already on, but that land doesn't get developed, it becomes a natural border? Like, do you have an end goal that's like well-defined, or are you kind of playing it by ear? Like, where are we?
You know what, then I think when we dubbed it 1492 Land Back Lane, I think it really became about land back. And you know what, I think there might have been some discussions that could have been had you know, these people showed up on, you know, day 2, you know, day 3, but you know, there's been no response from the feds, the province, or, you know, anybody but Mayor Ken Hewitt to call us all terrorists.
Right. Well, there's been the physical and arresting response, you know, the exact wrong response.
That's right. That's right. And so, and you know what, they've gotten their asses kicked for twice now in the last 10 months. And so if they want to continue that as the means of negotiating with our community is going to continue to make the stands that we have. And like the last time, like we you know, we don't want to be out here in the, you know, middle of the summer. We don't want to be out here in the middle of the winter digging up roads and you know, securing our camp. Like this is something that, you know, like this is absolutely ridiculous and infuriating for so many here at Six
Talks
Nations.
could be had.
This is right. Like this was last 2 months ago. They had a freedom of information request go through to find out how much it was costing the OPP to keep tabs on us. And so right now we're up to about $20 million spent on just policing.
I read the other figure from that was like $500,000 is what they're claiming is the damage to like the roads and when the railway was stopped and all that other stupid stuff too.
That's right.
Like, and they're going to pin that on your side. They're going to say that damage is yours. As you well know, with a $20 million damage claim against you.
Yeah, no, it's just definitely a thing. And so, you know, I don't know, we're going to continue to hold the land. We're going to continue to utilize it the way we see fit. And so like, and right now that's, you know, that's lacrosse games and gardens and, you know, doing all of the amazing things that, you know, there's $20 million to police 20 to 30 people sitting around a fire singing Kumbaya. Like it's been a peaceful occupation since the very first
Literally,
day.
if that amount of money existed, they could have just, as the country, bought the land back and given it to you for less than that. And it would have all gone the most beautiful PR way for the country of all times. Like, I mean, it would have been a massive win. And instead, they've wasted that money on policing and arresting you.
Well, you know, I imagine there's a few police officers out there with a new motorbike and a new hot rod in the garage. So
that is how it goes. Yay, police unions, so, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, like seeing these cops that are making, you know, $120,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year. Like it is like I just don't understand how like a community like Six Nations that is home to, you know, the most populated reserve in all of the continent, And there's places here that you know don't have running water, that have boil water advisories, that have this isn't a small place, and way up north on the living on an iceberg. Like
Right.
we are in the mid, like this is Southern Ontario, like this, like the expanse that is Southern Ontario, like the urban sprawl that has happened here. It is from Windsor to Niagara Falls, like so Detroit to Niagara Falls,
Yeah.
and like straight north of there, like it is just houses out. Like as you drive down the highway, there it just each town borders on the next town, borders on the next town, and so there's just no space anywhere to be able to do anything. And so for us to be able to make this type of stand in the area that we are, like it is taken, like you were saying earlier, like it is, my day starts at 6 a.m. and it doesn't stop until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and
Every
the
day.
phone does not stop all day long.
Occupations
Yeah,
are
so
an
it is,
intense environment. While you might have those moments of everyone being happy, when you're around a campfire or something, I'm sure you are as aware as I am from those types of events. There are people standing near the edges of everything that aren't at the campfire, making sure that you all can be having fun at that campfire. So like
that's right.
it's a harrowing environment. It is not. The fun at the campfire type of moments are the not the big event that's happening here. The big event that's happening here is the people watching to make sure that a perimeter hasn't been breached by a group of OPP. That that Foxgate hasn't hired
That's right.
mercs to come in. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? So Chad had a question, and that was,
They tried that.
yeah,
They
of
did
course they
try
did,
that.
right? Of course they did. So Chad's question
Yeah, they did try that after August 5th.
is how much did they buy the land for to develop it? Do you guys know that number? Was it 5 million, 10 million?
$4 million.
4 million. Okay,
$4
so
million.
5 times that amount has been spent on policing you occupying it. Okay,
Yeah.
so now I've got the dumbest question of all. If $4 million was raised that could be given to them, would they sell it to you? And if you
I don't know.
if that money was raised, would you want to give it to them to take it back, or would you rather fight this out the way that you're currently fighting it out? Like, it's interesting to think about
You know
these.
what? Like, if I think if the federal and provincial government were to step up to the table and buy these developers out, and that would do away with the injunction. And so, I think that is the most peaceful process forward here.
It's
That
a
is the only way
small
that
enough
does not
number
end in
when you talk a provincial government. It's a small enough number. Like, that sounds like a big number to anyone who doesn't own their own house yet. But for a provincial government, that number's a rounding error on their budget. They could
That's
fix
right.
this problem.
Absolutely.
They could fix this problem.
Absolutely.
They don't want to set the precedent that when pushed, they give Indigenous people and First Nations people their land back. That's the precedent they're fighting against.
That's right. And I mean, like that pathway forward in this is one that was laid out in 2006, because that's exactly what happened in 06. Was that when like, again, on the doorstep of our community, on a border of our reserve, there was this massive development, and the province at the time stepped up at a plate and was like, okay, we'll buy this out until it gets settled, and then we'll get it figured out. And then the feds and the province walked away again, and have not engaged with our community since. And so whatever that process is moving forward, like, we need to get some stuff figured out here, because like having only people that we have to negotiate with are these these men with guns on their hips. Like, this isn't
right.
This isn't what
they haven't sent a politician into camp. They've sent guns into camp.
That's right. And I mean, like, Ottawa isn't so far away from Six Nations. Like, it's a 4-hour car ride, $120 worth of gas to round trip to get there and back. Like, you could have saved $20 million and put $120 in the gas tank and made the drive out. Like, it is absolutely ridiculous that we are sitting here 300 plus days and still in the same spot that we were 300 days ago.
Lots of thoughts going through my head. I'm sure chat has a lot too. What else does chat want to know? Chat is really involved here. They are talking all about the stewards of the land, not owners, and all the other truthful statements about how this really should be going. Yeah, I have a lot of questions about that number because to me, who barely made rent last month, like I fully understand how much $4 million is, but I also understand how much it is to the people on the other side, which is not much at all. If that number would solve the problem, I got to imagine there's a way to make that number show up. The question is, will Fox actually take their money back? Or will the government not let them do that? And the other question I have, which is interesting to me, that you maybe know the answer to, since you did so much research on the legal side, but you might not, and that's fine. If you were to somehow, let's say, miracle of miracles, someone shows up with $4 million, right? And buys the land from them and then wants to gift it to the tribe. Can that become part of the reserve? Is there a legal process for someone on your border giving you land? Or does it still belong to like the one individual that they're allowed to gift it to? And can you be gifted that amount of value out of Canada? Like so many questions around how they treat the First Nations people, right?
So there's an absolutely ridiculous answer to that.
Okay.
And the answer is no. It cannot come back to the reserve. The process is set up in such a way that we've been the both elected council and the hereditary chiefs here have bought land off reserve and said, you know what, like this, it needs to become part of the reservation. Like we need to find out what that looks like. And there's one parcel that is on the other end of the reserve that like I think it's about 40 acres. And they've been trying to make that part of the reserve now for the last 96, so 25 years. And it is just a bureaucratic nightmare. And
they don't want to let it become part of the reserve because then it can't be sold back through some horrible means later in the future.
But so now, because there's like taxation issues that come around, municipally owned lands, and so if the municipality owns it, then they are legally bound to collect taxes off of that land. And if it is reserve lands, there's no taxation on it. And then
so they want to keep the property taxes on that land.
That's right. And so the properties that we own off the reserve are being expected now to pay property tax,
which is horrible.
And so that's something that, you know, our community is not too keen on doing.
I mean, even the idea of you having to buy back your own land is still just to me like fucking, oh my God, like what? Everything about it is tragic, right?
It really is. And so, I mean, like, it's one of those things that, you know, you're talking about these millions of dollars and stuff. And like, you know, there was a study done, I don't know, 15 years ago that said, like, you know, our community needs about $12 million to be able to make sure that every single home on Six Nations had clean, drinkable running water. And so yeah, and that still is not the case.
That's not the case on most reservations in North America. I mean, I don't know how you guys are doing, but like I literally, when I was working with people down on other reservations here, a couple of the nations we've already mentioned, we got to the point where there were so many homes that didn't have good enough lighting and electricity that we were building them out. I don't know if you've ever seen the plastic bottle roof lighting that'll fill an entire room, but we were literally cutting 2-liter Coke bottles, 2-liter Pepsi bottles. If you cut one in half and then you seal the top and you fill it with water and then you put that wide of a hole in your roof so it's tight so the water can't, rain can't get through it, but then you have that at the top where the bottom of it's sticking out, during the day, that will fill a 20 by 20 room with so much light it'll look like you have giant powered electric lights in there. And we were doing stuff like that just to make sure they had lighting. And it's crazy that they couldn't get like just the basics in place for these people, and they wouldn't allow them, even though there's a power company on their land, And it sounds like you have a lot of the
Yeah.
similar kind of infrastructure issues.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, like there are people that have done very well for themselves on Six Nation. Like I said, there's near 30,000 people that are from here. Like there's a lot of people that live in very big houses and drive very nice cars, and and all the best to them. And
Yeah.
but then two doors down, there's a guy that has an outside bathroom and running water, and the has to boil water if he's going to use it for cooking or drinking. Like the disparity in stuff is it's quite the contrast when driving up and down the road around here.
That is, it sounds a little more interesting than like, because outside of, the reservation, you're going to see these big plots of lands with gated communities where the nicer houses are, and they're all just in rows of little McMansions, right? and yours sounds a little more mixed in terms of just the person whose land that is has built something better on it. And so you're going to have that's a different, like, I don't think I've seen that with my own eyes before. That is an interesting look. Now
Yeah.
yeah. Huh. I do like the idea in chat, talking about, what it looks like legally to give land back to the reservation. Obviously, for you guys, it looks like a 20-year fight, and you still don't have any of it through yet. But that's an interesting thing to think about.
Bureaucratic nightmare.
Huh. That is an interesting thing to think about. I don't know. I would love to revisit some of this. I would love to have another episode with you in the future, but I would also love, if you don't mind, just to make a few phone calls to people and then reach back out to you about some ideas I'm having right now related to some of this stuff. Because I do have some friends with connections all the way up to Parliament. I mean, one of the reasons I'm not allowed back in Canada is due to a meeting with Trudeau that I wasn't supposed to have. That I won't talk about because of legal reasons and agreements, but I was definitely not supposed to be in the room that he walked into. But whatever, I had for some friends, and like you mentioned, Turtle Island, for some friends out there, I interrupted his day, and now I'm not allowed back in Canada anymore. But stuff happens, right? So I think there's some stuff to be done here, and I really do want to stay connected here. I'm really glad Kent got us talking. Chat, like, what else do you guys want to talk about? Like, they're talking about like collective buybacks, what we could do, in terms of bumping up the GoFundMe a little more. I know there's a bunch of Twitter accounts that are quite large, and a few Facebook groups that are quite large that would love to boost this now that we know it's out there. Yeah, I mean, obviously, any questions before we go? Like, let's talk about this stuff. I want to travel there with 1,000 musical performers. Yes, we have a bunch of musicians in the audience, and Doxy is one of them, and she's amazing. And
Nice.
so, like, when you see the graphic for the show tonight, or the background graphics when you see the episode on YouTube, that was all Doxy. Like, we're so lucky that she's around here being so awesome. But
So yeah, in the next little bit here, we're organizing another concert, and so like on my Facebook
Take
is
a
the
trip.
one that I use most often to look at the videos. There's like just a ton of like kind of local talent that have come out and done stuff.
Yep.
Last when was it? About a month ago, we had a concert that that we did just online because COVID, and but yeah, next month we're looking at doing another live concert and lacrosse game, and so yeah, so if we can start planning some stuff here, I think we're going to start planning that in the next day or two here to really do a big show again. And so like all of those performers, like
Nice.
I don't know what the border situation looks like for folks that are in America, but absolutely come on down, come back to land back lane, and we're gonna continue holding it down. We're gonna continue to push forward in whatever way we possibly can to make sure that our people are on the land for ever and ever and ever.
I have shared the Facebook in the chat for everyone, so they can go see all that stuff. And there are videos. There's all kinds of stuff on there for people to go look at. Yeah, we're up over an hour now, and like I said, when we first mentioned, we go an hour, and if we happen to go a little longer, whatever, until it ends, right? But I always do with something especially this important of a topic, want to make sure that chat didn't miss out on anything. There's no questions that we skipped over. Like, let us know. And when you see me look this way, that's because that's where the chat window is, so I can see what they're saying. So if you guys have anything else you want me to ask or bring up before we go here, we're definitely going to revisit this issue. We're going to post some more about this, and there's some more interactions to be had here. I'm interested in a few of maybe my Hollywood friends. I know it's weird because I hate the idea of, like, you know, the opposite side of colonialism is the white guy swooping in, right? Like, you don't want, like, just the white American guy swooping in and saving the day. Like, that story is a lie told to the world by Hollywood, right? I mean, it's in every movie. The white guy shows up and fixes things, right? So you don't want to, like, you know, add to that that narrative in any negative way. But I do know some people who are friends with a lot of super rich people, and I want to see what their thoughts are on those ideas, because one, they can help me understand what it takes to make those kind of moves, but also two, you know, one of them might be interested in seeing what the legal fight might look like in terms of their lawyers are way stronger than any I could ever afford. These are those, you know, $5,000 because they answered the phone kind of lawyers. So I'm going to reach out to some of them and just see if any of them are willing to have the conversation. I can't promise anything, but I'm going to, because that's interesting to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's exactly what we need to have happening here in the next little bit. And like for over the next 6 months to really start to push so that we can have all of these, you know, massive lawsuits and criminal charges that are, you know, are plaguing all of us. Like it is, I just recently had to turn myself in because like the warrants over my head for the last, you know, 10 months has been quite trying and taxing to be able to, I'm still a father, you know, I'm still have, you know, responsibilities to my kids and my, you know, my daughters. I got four little girls. Well, little, they're all teenagers, but
right,
you know,
right.
that, you know, need dad to be able to take them to, you know, one's graduating high school and one's,
that was only like a week ago that you basically you had
had
to turn yourself in at the courthouse to the police to get, you know, like get basic charges put against you. You were released same day though, right?
I was lucky enough that that there was 80 people that showed up to, you know, make sure that they let me out, and you know, there was a lot of people in front of the police station that were you know, carrying flags and were quite supportive of the work that I'd been doing. And so yeah, no, they were, I've never seen cops so nice to me in my life, you know.
Well, they didn't want to be the cop that the news article was written about, right?
This is it. Yeah.
I mean, so we know how they think. It's they try their best to avoid the individual PR disaster. If it's the whole group of them doing it, well, they don't seem to have a problem with that. But they don't individually want their name in the title of an article. Like, that seems to be what I've learned from these people. And yeah, I'm right there with everyone. ACAB all day. You know, that's just where I am. That's my personal politics. But
and I'm with you. And I'm with you.
So yeah, all right. Well, you know, I think we've gone a good show here. Is there anything that we missed? Like, one thing that I think I would love to know is, beyond the money, which people I'm sure are going to start donating some, and we'll share it as far and wide as we can. Are there any other types of donations that camp actually needs? Because, like, I remember from other occupations, we literally needed people to be donating some tents and some supplies and other things. Like, is there anything else that you guys need that in terms of, like, physical goods? And is there a way to, like, donate physical goods?
Yeah, I mean, like right now, like it's about sustainability. And so like those like solar panels and solar kits to be able to outfit those
the little houses, the tiny houses you make.
Yeah, and so like right now none of them have any power, but like yeah, like those solar panels and solar kits and batteries and those kinds of things is exactly what we're kind of looking to utilize in the next probably month or two here as the weather does get warmer. I know we're in Canada here, but it still gets, you know, 90, 95, 98, 100 degrees up here in the summertime. And so it's Southern Ontario, not Northern. So it is
yeah, it's
kind of online with like New York City, Detroit kind of area. And so like it still gets very, very warm here in the summer, very, very cold.
Yeah, I mean, some people kind of are okay with that. I'm in Boston right now, and it does the same thing. Like, you know, it's in the 80s now.
Right.
It's gonna hit 100 this summer at least once, and then it's gonna hit negatives in the winter. I'm from Texas though originally, and I like more consistency, so that kills me. When I was outside for like Occupy during winter, that killed me. Oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh.
I just did from July till maybe end of February before I finally moved into a tiny house. Was in the back of my van. I had a bed.
More power to you, man. That's, big props for that. People don't know what it takes because you're 2 months in, and at night, 3 a.m, you wake up cold again. Your only thoughts are, man, there's places like 5 minutes from here with roofs and heating, and then you go back to sleep because you know better. But like, I know we all have those thoughts in those moments, and it's a struggle.
You turn your car on, right. You crank the heat, and then you jump back under the blanket.
Yeah.
And then you get warm again, and then you fall asleep. But now the car's on and the heat's cranked, then you wake up an hour later, drenched in sweat this time.
Yep. And yeah. So... there's no way to make that comfortable for any period of time.
This was my winter this year.
So we talked about some supply ideas there. How would people get physical stuff to you if they could? Do they just literally need to drive up to the border?
I don't know what the border situation is right now. I know that they're talking about relaxing some stuff in the next little bit here, but I don't know 100%. But certainly, like if that's something that you want to do, certainly reach out to me, and I'll make sure you get directed.
Well, I have a friend who's this really weird guy, and I love him to death. He's one of my favorite human beings. But he's like he's a carpenter, an electrician. He's a master at like 6 of those different trades, right? But like one of the funny things about this guy is, like the Super Bowl, right? Everyone knows the Super Bowl. It's the NFL, big game. Yeah. So like CBS have that big desk they set at that's like this most amazing lit up with the glass top and the wood and the panels. He's the dude who designs and builds that crap and then goes to the Super Bowl and gets to put it together for them, for like them and Fox. And he builds those very specialized like news desk type desk things. And then in his spare time, he travels a lot of third world countries going and helping them get like sustainable water systems in place, solar in place, things like that. But he was actually one of our occupiers for a long time and helped us all get like our tents in place properly and actually build out in ways where, we learned things like what you put under a tent before you put it on the dirt. So when the snow starts to melt, you don't wake up soaking wet and frozen with frostbite. Like he was the guy at Occupy who helped us with all that type of stuff. So I'm going to first things first, reach out to him tomorrow and just like be like, so here's the situation. And see if he has any thoughts, because he's dealt with a lot of big donors in the past for a lot of the third world stuff. And and there's got to be some people out there with some thoughts on this that might not have heard about it yet. And now that we're talking about it, let's get it in everyone's ear. Yeah, no,
love it.
I love it, everyone. Yeah, I'm a big fan here. So let's call that the show. I'm going to reach back out in a couple days once I have a little more understanding of things. But one of the things we will do, everyone in chat, we're going to share this GoFundMe as far and wide as we possibly can. Hopefully it helps. I always hate to see GoFundMes with like this much money in them because I know people will see that much money in them and think, they're doing fine. And I need to make that clear that no, this is not enough money. Please, for the love of God, people give when you can. Don't take food out of your own mouth, but if you can give.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, capacity, right? Like
exactly.
Whatever you're capable of doing is absolutely amazing. And,
exactly.
We are so incredibly grateful. And again, for you to, have me on the show, and like it's really, really grateful. And, big now from everybody at Land Back Lane.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. If I was allowed in Canada, I'd come pay a visit. Maybe I find a way still, but that border does not like me right now. Maybe, I don't know. I'll reach out to some friends, see if I can get a pass for a day. But all right, everyone. This was great. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad you all showed up. Thanks for being here, Skyler. Thanks for sharing all of these wonderful stories with us. And we will definitely be in touch, and we will revisit this issue because me and you both know this isn't ending tomorrow. There's still a big, long fight here.
Big, long fight to be had. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, everyone. Good night.